the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. To the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. To the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. To the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. To the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Salt the Streets podcast, the most pro-America, anti-government show that you know, the show where we discuss news, government, and culture and how it pertains to you and your natural rights to life, liberty, and, of course, that wonderful pursuit of happiness. I am one of your hosts. I am that big bird-looking fellow they call Colin. My co-host is joining me once again, as always, but probably for the last time in this particular studio. He is lead researcher at the North American Center for Terminator 2 Studies and a man who quotes the Declaration of Independence whenever he's trying to get his lady into the mood. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him, you love him, Mr. Donovan Phillips. Nailed it.
That was great. That was great.
Those kids are called callbacks.
Yeah, that was great.
What are we doing today? What are we talking about?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great show. I was smiling before the casting started. I'm happy to be here. We've had an excellent week.
It's been
the
fantastic.
Show has been great. Yes, thank you for having me here again. This is the last time.
This is it, baby.
At least, as a regular show in the
Indeed.
studio. We are making very solid progress. For those of you on the Patreon, there will be a full studio walkthrough, detail, all the cool pieces and everything, which everything is in. It's going to be great. So it's episode 156, Saturday, September 9th, 2023, 12:07 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
If you're an audio listener, it's 9/11.
That's true. Yeah,
Yo.
that's true. That's tough.
I saw an order come through the other day that was going out on Monday. I was like, ooh, them digits hit hard.
Yeah. So there you go. 9/11, if that's your thing. Thank you, everyone, for being here in the chat.
The G Unit has assembled.
Yeah.
What's up, guys?
they're
Shout out,
here.
Bilbo.
We got a couple of local stories. We got some small stuff. We're going to talk in no particular order. We're going to talk about breaking points in some depth, right? There's been a lot of stuff going on with I love all of you in the chat. We've had two big videos this week. I don't know if you guys have seen them or not.
Been
one
pretty
about,
great.
Yeah, one about breaking points, one about Maui. They're getting big numbers through the roof, as your boys would say.
roof.
Yeah, I know you like that. So
Through the roof.
Yeah, they're doing excellent. If you haven't seen them, go watch them. They're nice short clips that are going on there. And we've had there's a lot of stuff going on. So we're going to go over some of the comments, address some of the things there. As we do on the show, probably make another clip out of that, make money off it. It's going to be great.
Let's go.
Yeah. And then, of course, in part two, we have some Hawaii updates, also kind of
Yes.
regarding some of these videos here. Some Hunter Biden stuff, some stuff with Liberty Safe, some things going on with some Jan 6 sentencing.
There's just a chock full of shit, man.
Yes, we have
Heavy
big,
Ukraine stuff. too,
Heavy
today.
Ukraine thing that is some updates, and then also some good discussional stuff that I know that you guys are always really into when we talk about Ukraine, kind of future. It's going to be some kind of how we got here type of things. It's going to be a good conversation. I'm very excited for that. And of course, with a grab bag going on part 4,
It's
Colin's
a good
gonna
grab bag. It's a good one.
give us the bolt to the jab. It's going to be great. So
It's either or, bro. You're getting it.
yeah, someone has to choose. Well, I guess you do, but
I want to go ahead and executively make a decision that today's episode not only brought to you by our glorious executive producer, Mr. Zeke out there,
absolutely.
but in particular, I want to give a shout out. Hopefully, he comes in later on. Mr. Kevin Garcia on Twitter. He is
Yes.
the_try_angel.
Angle.
Triangle.
Yes.
Triangle. Got
And
it.
he's that on Instagram too. He actually put out a video on his Instagram explaining why he changed his name to this.
Nice.
It's very good. I shared it. It's a very good video that we could totally watch.
We're gonna,
for
we'll
everybody
watch
who
that.
doesn't, but
Let's throw that in the grab bag right off
Yeah.
the top. I want to watch that. It'd be cool. But yeah, he's on an epic journey right now. Super proud of this guy. Lost over 212 now.
he's
and
down 222.
222 now. And follow him on the X app, as they call it these days. Support him. Watch the journey. It's pretty miraculous. Shout out to you there, Mr. Kevin.
Crushing it.
Love it. Oh, man. It has been a hell of a couple weeks, man. As far as like the news shit goes,
Yep.
it was super weird because as per the usual arrangement, starting to get towards the end of the week this week, and we're like, man, it's been pretty quiet. And then it was just dump trucks towards the end of the week.
Yes.
Of all the things. I'm very excited. I got some we were asked by one of our dudes, I think it was Andrew, asked
Yep.
about like an update on local
COVID
politics.
update. No, that was a different guy that asked
Oh,
about
okay.
local politics, but then Drew, asked about the COVID updates about the masks.
Perfect, because we're gonna. Yeah, I got some stuff for that, and
Excellent.
got some really interesting things as far as our local politics for like the state gubernatorial race.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Then we'll
nice.
just hit both
Yeah.
of those at the end of part 1.
Yeah,
and
it'd
we'll
be
just-
perfect.
That'd be great.
It'd be real good.
Yeah.
So I have to ask. Yeah, I'm under the weathers today. I'm drinking tea. I was. You ever fucked around with a neti pot?
Yes.
Like the squeeze bottle one, which is the only one, the little drippy one.
No, never the squeeze bottle. I have the drippy.
The squeeze bottle's where it's at.
No, one.
Get aggressive up in there.
Well, at work they're real into the Navage. You know what this thing is?
No.
So it's like a battery powered neti pot that has 2 deals on it. You
And
put
a
it
little pot underneath.
yeah. And
I
so
saw a fucking commercial for that
Yep.
yesterday.
So they've been on this shit for a couple of years, as the Baumgartners are. They get on shit.
They're
and
on
then,
the cutting edge, dude.
Yeah. So, yep. So it's battery powered, and you put the thing in both your nostrils, and there's like the clean water on the bottom, and then another reservoir on top, and it forces it through one nostril and sucks it out the other side, and then puts it in a different reservoir, and then you just toss it and clean it.
I could probably use that today, to be
You
honest.
should hit up
'cause
the Baumgartners because they'll buy you one. That's how
That'd be
they.
legit.
Yeah, Aaron has horrible sinus issues. So when she started there, she's talking about this, and they're like, "You should get this." And she's like, "I don't really have any money." And they're like, "I will buy you one." They send one to her house.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. That's awesome. You try some local honey and green tea and ginger if you're feeling unwell.
That's
I
true.
will actually, because we have some local honey that somebody picked up, I think, from a farmer's market. I think. I would hope so.
Tons of them things around here.
And then, yeah, this tea I'm drinking right now it's a ginger lime, which I don't know, immune support, whatever. I got some emergency vitamin C shit over
You're
there.
crushing it, huh? Attacking it on multiple fronts.
Yes, but I have a neti pot story.
Oh,
'Cause
right.
Big fan of the neti pot. I like the squeeze bottle one. It's my favorite. But
Okay.
the problem is if you're too clogged up on one side, flow won't necessarily happen. If you build up too much pressure, that little release valve at the back of your fucking throat opens up, and all that salt water and shit shoots through your mouth, and it's really terrible. And so I'm fucking around with that all day, and it's just all morning. I'm getting a trickle before the dam bursts, and then things come
Yeah.
out and things go fucking sideways really quick. But doing it, the other nostril's super clean at this point, and I kind of get done with it. I'm like, okay, cool. It's not fully flushed out, but at least there's a trickle coming through that side. So that's a step in the right direction, I think.
This was all today. This is stored from today.
This morning.
Okay. All right.
And there's been a problem as I'm sitting here making the final preps for the show and stuff today. I'll lean over at like a weird angle or something like that, and I think there's just pressure on my sinus. There's extra water up there still, and so I'll just be like bending over or leaning over, and then all of a sudden it'll just be a flow of water comes out of one of my nostrils. It's happened like 3 or 4 times now, so I'm hoping the reservoir is dry, and none of this is going to happen during the show, but it might. So good caution. If all of a sudden Niagara starts, flowing, like gushing out, as if you were just dropping water out of a glass or whatever.
As if you were pouring water from a glass.
Indeed. So yeah, if you all are subject to that, I apologize in advance.
At least we got the tissues here.
Indeed. Yes, tissues are prepped and ready.
Yeah.
Woo, because I'm definitely going to need those. So apologies in advance for sinus issues.
You're good, bro.
I'm a little upset that I don't sound as stuffy as I wanted to, because sometimes it gets real nice and
Yep.
deep, it works out pretty well.
Yep. I do feel that. Yeah.
So what do we want to talk about to start, my friend?
I have kind of a very political, let me ask you this, that goes back to something that we talked about last week. So we can start there if you want, and then get into, we can also start with breaking points, talk about some of that stuff. Because really the stuff with breaking points, we're not going to crush on them too hard. The biggest things were like Bidenomics, so we can watch that crystal ball video if you'd like.
Okay.
And then
That would be fun.
Yeah, and then you want to have a discussion about college also, because I have some thoughts about that, not as deep as last time, but
That sucks, Joseph. That happened to me at the beach getting pounded by a wave. It's getting better than being pounded by something else there, big guy. Yeah, let's do, so I could be in the right frame of mind. Let's
Okay.
let me ask you this first, and then my mind will be geared to that direction, and then
Okay.
we'll dive into some fucking breaking points, because that rant pissed me the fuck off.
yeah, and it's pretty short. So
Yeah, it'll be good. So I will hit the button.
with that, let me
me
ask
ask
you
you
this. Okay, so when it comes to Donald Trump, Joe Biden, we saw some polls last week indicating that there's a lot of people, especially Donald Trump voters, Republicans. I don't remember exactly who the sample was in that poll, but that they, believe that Donald Trump tells them the truth. Most people don't believe that Joe Biden is telling them the truth. That's indicated by a lot of different polls, whatever. That's the general sense of what's going on. Why do you think that is, that people tend to feel like Donald Trump is telling them the truth and Joe Biden is not telling them the truth? Because we've talked a lot about, I'll give some detail, then so you can have some time to think, because we've talked a lot about the way that Donald Trump talks and a lot of the things that he says, and most of the time you can listen to what he's saying and understand what he's trying to get at. Also hear the way that it's spun into, he's lying to you, he's saying this, that's like, he also might really believe this thing and none of us know that, you know. And if he only has a cursory understanding of what's going on and there are people around him that are giving these details, telling him that so-and-so is legal or whatever example you want to give, I understand how the man gets here and I can see how he feels as though he's delivering the truth. So why do you think that is?
I think it's because it's not so much in how he says things, because who's not going to lie about a lot? He's a very petty man and he's very egotistical, so that's kind of goes with the territory. But I think of it, no other politician would have brought up the concept of like the deep state being the enemy of the people or the corporate press being the enemy of the people. Those are truthful things, and he's not the best at saying it. He's the best at coming up with a slogan for it. Ask him to pontificate on it and dig deep, you're not going to get very deep. But that, as far as a politician goes, is about as truthful as anybody's ever been with the American people. So in that kind of broader strokes thing, he talks about the things that are forbidden or verboten in the government to be talked about.
Yeah.
Those are truthful problems that that affect everybody, and he's the only one that talks about those things. So I feel like that's probably how somebody can think that Donald Trump tells them the truth, compared to, say, because there was like the friends and family thing that they brought up in that same poll, like over that, because probably they're not tapped into like understanding what the deep state is or how the military industrial complex works or anything like that. Those are usually buzzwords that trigger people into like conspiracy. And so most people aren't tapped into that. But when DJ Trump talks about it, he's essentially, in one way or another, kind of speaking truth to power in a way. Because, mind you, he's the president, but it's also like the giant deep state establishment is way more powerful than even he was. Look at his presidency. So that's what I would say. Make sense?
Yeah, no, I like that. No, I like that. Joseph said, lean as far forward so your head is upside down and apply pressure like you're trying to make your face red for a few seconds, then stand straight up. Breathe out really hard, but don't let it out. These are tips for your face.
I like it. I'll do it in the break. How about that? Oh, I love it. Okay, crystal ball. Let's pull that video up. Boom.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good answer. I think as far as Joe Biden,
in contrast, he lies about everything.
And then we've talked about that many times, that his various employee support staff have had to come out and correct things that he's saying. It's not good.
The White House has a different opinion than the president.
Yeah.
That's what I love that. It's so ridiculous.
He also tends to just seem like he doesn't really know what he's talking about. You're down way too far.
Way too far.
Yeah.
Because it was relatively...
This was like just...
Biden's peril.
That, I think, is it.
Is it?
Yeah. How Biden screwed his own presidency. Yeah, that one's all about the economy. Biden economy is the problem. That's it.
I swear it had a different name.
Yeah. Okay, so the reason that we're talking about this...
because Biden...
It's not necessarily breaking points. We want to talk about Bidenomics, and this is like the best avenue for this because she delivers just a straight monologue about it.
Yes.
So this is not a breaking point segment necessarily.
She is the vessel that the message of Bidenomics is being delivered in one way or another. I mean, this is her point of view that she's laying out is pretty indicative of kind of the standard left.
Yes.
Is it wasabi?
Yes.
I think I got some cheap wasabi powder. I'll just snort that.
Have you ever done? You remember the cinnamon challenge? Yes.
Oh yeah, I remember.
You did the cinnamon challenge?
Yeah.
Do you remember? I think we may have talked
back
about this
before it was cool, man.
We
before
may
the
have
internet
talked
was a
about this
thing.
before. There's supposedly a remedy for hiccups that you like eat a spoonful of mustard.
I have heard such things.
Right. So Jordan's a big proponent of this. She tells people all the time.
You got to get the spicy mustard?
No, just mustard. It's just because of how intense that flavor is. Like it disrupts. I don't know, dude. I've never done it. I'm not a mustard person, and I'm willing to just willing to ride out the hiccups until
Yeah.
they're done.
Exactly.
But for my bachelor party, we were absolutely shithoused, and my buddy Dion had the hiccups super bad, and so Jordan told him like, "Hey, you should take a spoonful of mustard, and that will help with this thing." And so he gets the biggest fucking spoon that he can find.
Oh, no.
It's an enormous spoon, and right before it's like it's slightly larger than this. It's a large spoon, and so it's all full of mustard, and he's about to eat it, and he's like, "Hey, y'all remember the cinnamon challenge?" And we're like, "Yeah, for sure, that's hilarious." And he's like, "Should put some cinnamon on top of this." And so we grabbed some cinnamon out of the cupboard and put fucking cinnamon all over the top of this mustard, and then he just crushed this whole spoonful of it.
Dude.
His hiccups did in fact go away.
It's probably because he's worried about dying after that.
Yeah.
Oh, shout out Maddie in the
great.
chat. Shout out Matt Toman. It's my homie.
What's up, dog?
What up, dog?
Yeah. Also, okay, so I decided this is what this is. It's not an attack on Breaking Points. This is an attack on Cristobal in particular. I don't even want to say the word attacking her. We're coming to Cristobal. We're attacking her. That's what it is. Because she also made some comments last week about like how she favors leading up to this, favoring Joe Biden's economics.
Indeed.
And that's one of the things that she prefers
done a
over
lot of good for the country.
over Donald Trump. And so I have two other clips that we can find if we want, where she talked about that, and then Jimmy Dore did that whole break, Cristobal owns Cristobal, where they talk about that as well. So there's three different clips that if we need to, we can go at, but let's just start here. She made the argument 2 times in the week or two prior to this that one of the things that she preferred about Joe Biden over Donald Trump was his economic plan, was the way that he had affected the economy. If you are speaking from a working class perspective, right? Because I think that's really the important part of this.
That's where I'm coming from.
And that's who they claim to be. That's who the show is for, right? They don't claim to be of that. They're never like, we are working class people. They seem to be pretty honest about how affluent they are because they talk about the shit that they do. They travel the time. They do whatever, right?
$40 million or something.
They don't ever say we have a ton of money, but they also don't ever say we are working class. They're, they don't represent. I'm trying to be clear about that because they don't represent themselves that way.
Yeah. No, they're a part of the political class.
Right. But the way that they deliver this, and they do say this, is supposed to be for the working class people. This is for the everyday person to be able to consume this content and understand what's going on in politics, from their honest, objective view, blah, 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 right? As untrue as all of that is, that's what
their stance.
That's what their stance is. And so for Cristobal to tell anybody that Joe Biden has a better economic plan or has done better for the country economically than Donald Trump did, that is a lie. That's not true, and there isn't a way to make that true from a working class perspective.
Not even a little.
So it's odd and difficult to understand that when she makes that argument twice, that Joe Biden is better economically, when there is no argument. Even if you take COVID out of that as much as you can, right? There are many other things going on in the country that have affected the inflation rate as far as the dollar goes, gas prices, the food prices, outside of the things that happened during COVID, right? We are not, and there isn't a way to make the argument that anybody in the working class is in a better position financially now than we were when Donald Trump was president.
Check.
That's not true.
No.
And they also tend to hold up this idea that, I guess, depending on who you work for and how good your boss is, that the Donald Trump tax cuts only benefited the rich and they only benefited big companies. And if you were working class and you had a regular job, then you didn't make any money from that and it didn't benefit you at all. That wasn't my experience. And so I've always had to disagree with them on that because, and we've also had to be open about it. We work for a very good company, and so our bosses are very good. But they were also open with us that when they were doing better because of the Donald Trump tax cuts, they passed that down to us.
Yes.
So I don't agree with that. And I don't think that I'm the only person in the country who had that experience, that their bosses made more money, so they gave them more money. There are a lot of people that did that. And throughout the Donald Trump presidency, I don't even want to go too far into it because that's like a statistics and charts and stuff like that I don't prepare. But like people were making more money during that time. This is an unarguable fact.
As they said, the greatest numbers we've seen of our lifetime or something like that.
Yes. And then Jimmy Dore started to make some comments about her net worth, right? And there were other people in our YouTube comments that were making some of those comments as well. And I don't know, you researched it, you looked up the numbers, that
Yeah.
I don't,
Well, it's tough because
and I don't want to.
the net worth thing is always very difficult for anybody to actually get an actual look at. There's a few websites that try to do their best, and they'll try to say this, that, and the other thing. Some people are saying she's worth $4 million. Some people said essentially her entire net worth, because she has $23 million in investments, apparently.
Right.
Who knows? But she's also been married like a number of times to very like well-off people.
Yeah.
And so who knows where that kind of stuff comes from? It could. Who really knows?
Yes, Joseph says they obviously don't buy gas. She did say last week that she has a Ford EV that she drives like to work, and then they have a gas vehicle for longer road trips that they do. You know,
A Ford EV, huh? Don't want to don't want to support Elon Musk apparently and get the good EV.
No, gotta get the Ford EV.
Can't be doing that.
I don't know. I don't know that much about electric vehicles. You know.
I do know my buddy just paid off his Tesla, and he's very thrilled about that.
Yeah, I know more about the political side of electric vehicles than I do about the actual ownership side of electric vehicles. I don't know that much about it. So the reason that we provide this detail is because it is in this segment that she gives an argument for Bidenomics, attempts to give an argument for Bidenomics that is not very good.
And then immediately steps on her argument, too, by the way.
Yes. So we will kind of address the different points that she brings up as far as the way that
Kevin's here.
Kevin.
Shout out, buddy.
Yes. Money went further under Donald Trump.
Oh, for sure.
You are correct. Yes. There's no doubt about that.
That's what happens when inflation kicks in hardcore.
Yes. That doesn't, I want to say this really quick because I want to make sure that we're fair about it. That doesn't remove the financial irresponsibility from both presidents, because there was, in fact, enormous amounts of spending under both administrations.
Yes.
That did get us to where we're at now. And that's why I tried to remove that COVID thing, because they both had a hand in what was going on there.
Yeah.
And it's obviously just gotten worse since then. But
It has. Yeah, and I think in DJ Trump's kind of defense, at that particular point when they're talking about, you know, the first original like printing of the money, you know, that massive $1 trillion, you know, multi-trillion-dollar package, all that stuff. Congress is going to push that through with or without him. We'll put it that way.
Yes.
So he was, mind you, he did kind of take the helm on it. Was definitely advocating for it.
Right.
But there is an argument to be had there. So just to be equal,
totally
on both sides there.
Totally. And what I mean, like you said, what are you going to do when the bills get to your desk? You're going to just not sign them?
Yeah.
You're going to, sorry guys, I'm
Veto.
I'm not going to send out the checks. You know what I'm saying?
And then piss off the, what are you going to do, bro? They kind of,
Precisely.
they tie your hands.
Because then at the end, towards the end of during the election, he's like, send out more checks. He's like, fuck it. I
Let's
don't
go.
care. Send them again.
Love it. All right, let's kick it.
The Fed letting any bank print money in March of 2020 didn't help inflation. You're correct about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It
And
literally just hurt.
yeah, let's listen to our Bidenomics thing, and then we'll get there.
All right, let's do
Because
it.
I'm sure she'll address every point that we're
Probably.
going to bring
She
up.
hits them pretty quick.
Yeah.
Well, a new poll from the Wall Street Journal underscores how even the mainstream press can no longer deny that Biden's age is a significant and legitimate issue for voters. 3/4 of American voters believe he is too old, and that includes a large majority of Democrats. And as we discussed on Tuesday, according to life expectancy charts for white men, there is quite a significant chance that he could actually die in office. As I said, that's worth considering. But the
Remember, my standing bet still holds. He's not going to make it till the end of the actual term.
Yeah, we got to talk about the Deadpool at the end of this.
Yeah.
truth is, Biden's age isn't actually his biggest liability. Now, as always, it's the economy, stupid. It's the future promise of Bidenomics versus a current reality of struggle. And if he loses to Trump, it will have more to do with the proverbial kitchen table than with the actuarial tables. So let's dig into the actual Biden economic record, the failures, the wins, and why Americans are not feeling the Bidenomics
Can we
love.
pause it for a second? And can I just want to say why this argument of this is good long term doesn't matter, right? Partially because we're living in right now.
Yes.
And it matters what my money is worth right now. And if your economic plans are not helping me out, but they're going to help me supposedly in 20 years, I don't give a shit.
No, I'm not going to make it that far.
The other reason that doesn't matter is because when a new president comes into office, you cannot guarantee what happens.
No.
So your promises for even 4 years from now mean nothing to me.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing that matters for what you're doing is what you're doing during your presidency, your administration, because anything past that can be struck right the fuck down by any Congress, any president that comes afterwards.
Yeah, and that's a very common tactic, especially for Congress, is to make particularly with economic plans, anything that has to do with taking in money and
Yes.
spending money, they're always 8 to 10 year plans.
Over the next 10 years.
Yes, and that's okay. That's so we're going to spend that justifies the spending of the money now, and then once in 8 to 10 years, there will be a different party in power, generally speaking, and they'll roll all that shit back, and then nothing ever matters anyways.
The only thing that works for is infrastructure. But as far as the economic aspect of presidential plans, things that happen past your administrative term do not matter.
And let's be real here. Presidents shouldn't have economic plans.
No.
It's out of their purview. But hey, we live in reality, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. COVID should be left on the people to deal with.
Like the common cold, flu, and stomach bugs, we should have been able to help to decide on mass shopping in person and so forth. I absolutely agree.
Amen.
We were in a hotbed in Washington State for lack of choice during COVID-19. They were, at some of the height of surveillance, they were tracking people's GPS on the roads and stuff to see who was driving and who was staying at home. Even though they were saying it's not illegal to drive, it's not it's not against the rules to
But there's
to
too many
drive and to
people
be
traveling.
out. Yes, but there's still a lot of people traveling, which indicates that people aren't staying home and being safe.
They're being
And
bad.
so we got to lock down more.
Shut it down.
It was really bad here. So
real
I
bad.
absolutely agree with you. As far as the choice aspect of it, yeah.
Oh, but hey, people should be free to make whatever kind of medical decisions they want to.
Yeah.
As long as it pertains to just abortion or with gender affirmation care. Nothing else, though. Not if we tell you need to get a jab.
The TLDR is this. The economic story of the Biden administration, as experienced by regular people, has been price spikes coupled with a stripping away of all the pandemic programs, which actually did help them survive.
So, Donovan, this has been, this is one of my biggest points of contention throughout this whole thing.
Yes.
And she introduces it right here. Part of the major issue with this is the stripping back or stripping of those COVID pandemic era related programs that were enacted. Why were these things rolled back, Donovan? Because the COVID emergency that gave them legal justification to do those things ended? So
Yes.
with that, you have to pull back those programs?
Right.
Okay. Just sanity check for me
It
real quick.
wouldn't have mattered who the president was that those programs were being rolled back. It wouldn't have
It was
mattered
going to
at all.
end with the pandemic.
Yes.
Done.
This chart here from the lever shows all of the pandemic social safety net and how piece by piece it was allowed to expire, massively
Allowed
shrinking
to expire.
the social safety.
I don't.
It was allowed to expire, bro.
And she does this a lot with, and I guess I can't hit her too much on it because if you ask her, she will say nationalize it, But all of this undercoded language of we should have just continued these programs for the rest of forever. So once we put them in place, we should never have done away with them.
Well, they helped people, and I think she does herself a disservice here because her true argument is that we should have just turned those into regular programs.
Yeah.
But she doesn't do a very good job explaining that. But if we watch Never her 100%, she wants those things to be totally ensconced in law, and she's upset that they didn't. That would be my best, most charitable interpretation of what she's trying to say, even though the way she's actually saying it is just saying, because they just rolled back the COVID era policies. It's garbage.
Net for ordinary Americans. Now, for many people, these programs instituted by both Trump and Biden actually really improved their financial situation during the COVID crisis.
Okay. Also, I knew we were going to do this. Some of the stuff was like unemployment insurance, was an increased payment on your unemployment insurance. Why would you get more unemployment? The point was that we're taking all these jobs away as the government. We're limiting what you can do as far as your employment. People are going to lose their jobs. You can't go out to eat, so people are going to lose their jobs. When the economy is open now, we don't need to be giving you an extra $600 a month on unemployment. When we told you in the beginning, we're just throwing out this number because it's a highball average of what people should be getting. And if people get too much, it is what it is.
Well, and then
why would we continue that? Why there are arguments for some of these things, right? Why would we continue the unemployment insurance increase? For what reason? When you should be getting a fucking job again. Every business nearly has a sign out front that says that they are hiring.
Yep.
Why would we continue to pay you more to not have a fucking job?
I literally can't think of one possible excuse.
When we're
even
also
from a
arguing,
leftist.
when we're also arguing that we need to continue to raise the minimum wage,
Yeah.
these things just need to keep competing. That we need your minimum wage needs to be high enough that you need to be incentivized to not live on unemployment. Is that what the argument is here?
Yeah.
That's how we need to keep pushing it. You need to make sure that everyone's making over $1,000 a week, because if you make minimum wage plus $600, like that's what a ton of people were getting. You know, it took me a long time to make $1,000 a week from working. A long time.
And
so
you're putting in a lot of hours to get that.
I just don't understand the basis for the argument, you know?
Other than just people. I mean, you'd have to make a real circuitous bullshit leftist thing just about living wage type stuff.
Yeah.
You're like, well, whatever way they can get more money, then that's just the way they should be. And I would imagine they would have an argument about how unemployment insurance isn't enough as it is anyways,
Right.
because you still can't live off of that, so you need to increase that and keep the increase. But as we'll get on, as we'll talk about like job numbers and unemployment rate and all this stuff, and there'll be more to address kind of towards that once we get to that era. You paused at the perfect spot. She got that Mitch McConnell face.
Take a look at this chart of credit card debt. Pandemic programs led to a historic reduction in personal debt during 2020 and 2021.
Shout out.
But as those programs have been stripped away and inflation started to bite and the Fed hiked interest rates, Americans were quickly forced to rack back up new record levels of credit card debt, which has now surpassed pre-pandemic levels.
She doesn't mention it. It's like tricky. It's very good.
Very
It's
tricky.
very, very good that it's only the pandemic programs that helped lower it. But then it's the taking away of those and the inflation and the this that made it go up. But those things aren't what also made it low,
No.
right? Those aren't the things that are fucking us the worst. It's the taking away of the pandemic programs. That's what's really fucking us. That's why we had to use our credit cards again.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the national average of every single consumable good out there being exponentially higher than it was before all this shit went down.
Plus rent, plus power bills, gas bills, anything that could
Everything.
run off of shit that doesn't come from here
And
costs more money.
And we've talked about it multiple times, but it is worth saying again that when you look at the price of diesel, everything as the price of diesel fuel goes up, so does the price of everything else.
Yeah.
Anything that gets shipped on a boat, shipped through a truck, even on the fucking rail system, that's all some derivative of diesel fuel. And when it's fucking $6 a gallon at your local gas station, of course, your groceries are going to be more expensive. Everything's going to be more expensive because it all has to move. And if diesel's $2.50, you can haul things for much cheaper.
Right.
And then on the back end, the consumer pays less too. So solid baseline for everything. The price of diesel, watch that. As you watch that go higher and higher and higher, all goods will get higher and higher and higher. It's really, really simple to understand.
Now, the original idea of the Biden administration was to permanently expand the social safety net to bring it more in line with its other developed world peers. That was the basic concept of, quote, Build Back Better, to couple long-term investments in a green transition industrial policy with tangible, immediate benefits for Americans, things like affordable childcare, permanent child tax credit, huge investments in affordable housing, and a large expansion of healthcare. But this
What is affordable housing? What's a real life version of affordable housing brought to you by the U.S. federal government? In your mind, what do you think of?
Affordable is going to be dictated by, like, depending on what your job is. You know, affordable to me is not the same thing as, like, affordable to someone who fucking works at Burger King.
Because there's like technically there is a government title for apartments, or it's always going to be apartment buildings, generally speaking, but apartments that are affordable housing apartment complexes.
Right.
That means they're subsidized by the
Yes.
federal government for people to live there, and you have to have, if you make over X amount of dollars, you can't qualify for that,
Right.
or you'll be on some kind of sliding scale.
Section 8 housing.
That's exactly what she's talking about. She's not talking about more houses that people can actually afford. She's talking about government-sponsored and subsidized housing projects like Section 8 housing.
Right.
The fucking...
Because even if you're not talking about, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but even if you're not talking about government-sponsored housing like that, if you look at when we talked about was like the payroll tax in Seattle. A big part of that was zoning and stuff for new buildings. X amount of those new buildings have to be affordable housing, which is subsidized by the federal government. It's not owned by the federal government. It's built and owned by a private person who is going to rent out all those apartments. But
and gets a steady check from the government.
They can only charge so much, and whatever they need to charge to offset the other costs is going to be offset by the federal government because they are letting those people who have X income live in those apartments.
Yes, it's very similar to rent controls within certain cities.
Yes.
You can only charge this much, and then if you need more as the building owner, you'll get subsidized by the state, the city,
And
something.
there's big talks of rent controls.
In Seattle right now.
Yes. And
Massive.
in multiple governments. That's in like
I'm
multiple
sure.
facets of the government. There are different big talks about rent controls going on.
And that is just a tighter and tighter grasp of the government's involvement in your everyday life. Just keep that in mind.
This effort collapsed as Washington bought wholesale into what we now know was an incorrect analysis by permanently wrong economists of the causes of inflation. In the face of massive supply chain disruptions and what is by now a widely accepted phenomenon of corporate price gouging, these economists pointed to the little bit of money in regular Americans' bank accounts as the sole driver of inflation. And
Go ahead, Donovan.
Okay, so it wasn't the money that we had that caused the inflation. That isn't even the argument that is being made, right? Especially because, as she said before, most of that money went directly back into the economy. Even if it's just going to pay off your credit card debt, that goes back to a bank who's going to rent that money back out, who's going to loan that money back out. Now, it's the same thing, but to use the correct verbiage, who's going to loan that money back out. It's flowing back into the economy, whether you bought goods for your house. I've talked about it before. I paid off debt and bought ammunition. That's all the government checks I got. That's where all those dollars went to.
Investment.
Straight back into the economy, and it benefited me on the back end. So the argument was that money being printed does in fact affect inflation. You cannot add that much money to the supply and not make the dollars worth less money. That it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
That's not how any type of economic analysis works at all.
No.
There was in fact an aspect of corporate price gouging that went on, as there is always going to be.
Always?
People are always going to try and make more money when the opportunity is there.
Oh, for sure.
There are pieces of shit out there. There are people who just own companies who have fiduciary responsibility to their board of directors, to their investors. They have to try and make the most money. It doesn't always look good. Sometimes it's shitty. That's what their job is. And we can argue all day about whether or not that should be it, but that's the choices that they made.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's a completely separate conversation.
Totally separate.
Which I'm generally down with.
Yes.
But
she's also started to spin this line about, the Fed has told us through their study that it was the corporate price gouging that added to the inflation and not any of the money that was added to it.
so it's not what they did that caused the problem. They're not going to admit that what they did caused the problem. They're going to point the finger at somebody else.
There were literally trillions of dollars added to the national debt over the last 5 years. It is impossible to argue that that does not cause inflation to a high degree. It's impossible. It's not a valid argument, whatever anybody is saying to that. I'm not an economist. You don't have to be to understand when you add that much fake money to the fucking supply, it's worth less. You can't buy as much shit. That's how it works.
Yep. With every extra dollar that's printed, the value of your dollar that you're holding goes down. Your buying power goes down. Inflation goes up. It's literally economics 101 type of stuff.
And we've seen those effects around the globe with different countries choosing to not use our currency for trading in oil for different aspects. Or you can see it just in the comparison of our dollar to other dollars.
Oh, dude.
It's not worth as much anymore.
We're getting hammed up right now. It's getting rough out there as far as that goes.
We caught a bunch of troll shit in the comments this week about how we're fucking right-wing grifters and lying and all this type of shit, right? If you want to go through the hundreds of hours of times that we have made content and try and find a time in which we intentionally lied to you, I will give you money out of my own pocket.
Yes.
I know for a fact I've never come on this show and intentionally misled anybody.
Nope.
And I know that there have been multiple times where I've heard something that I said that's wrong and reflected on it, and we've done a fucking segment on it. We've eaten crow and made a whole fucking deal about it.
Yep.
So I'm not going to hear any of that shit from anybody about how we're grifting anything.
No, dude.
This woman is lying to the people who give her money. Right?
Indeed.
There is no debate about that. That's fine that this is the article that people are also saying this. Certainly that is an aspect.
Yeah.
The argument that that's the only thing that drove the inflation is absolute dog shit.
Yeah. And the fact that people did have money going to their pockets did also contribute to inflation because they printed that money. And that, unfortunately, when they printed trillions and trillions of dollars, we got a fraction of a decimal of what they printed. The rest of it went to massive corporations to keep all, I would assume, their, every congressional member and senators, pet lobbyist happy.
Right.
You would assume. I mean, everything from car manufacturers to airlines to, various, oil and gas industries.
Hotels, all the PPP loans, all the money they're trying to reclaim from that because they give out false PPP loans. I mean, it is endless the amount of people that got money. So even, I'm really glad you said it because I completely forgot about that aspect of the argument that even not even this, considering all that, is such a small portion of what really fed to inflation because of what a minute aspect of that legislation that these $1,200, what I think it ended up being like $3,800 at the most, that you got. It's a very, very minute portion of what fed to inflation.
Yeah. Like a fraction of a pittance, man.
Yes.
Nothing. But hey, these people care about you.
Basically, Biden and the Democrats bought it, running like scared children away from the part of their agenda that actually would have helped ordinary people in immediate, tangible ways. The collapse of Build Back Better roughly coincided with a messy Afghan withdrawal, which was 100% the right thing to do, but led to uniform condemnation of the Biden administration across media outlets. With this 1-2 punch, Biden's once impressive approval ratings collapsed and never recovered, as you can see on that chart. So
56% was the high point, and that was once impressive, huh?
Yeah.
56% approval. Way to go, dude.
that's the short-term economic reality, which has led Biden to be rated so poorly overall and specifically poorly on his stewardship of the economy. And it stands in stark contrast to a medium to long-term economic vision, which I have to say is actually the best of any president of my lifetime. Now, you might say that's a low bar. True. You might say there is way more that needs to be done. Also true. But the long-term Bidenomics vision represents an important and notable shift away from the market-obsessed tenets of 40 years of neoliberalism, which have decimated our industrial capacity along with our once storied middle class. To put it simply, Biden and his team have rejected the Reagan, Clinton, Bush, Obama consensus on free trade and have returned to a direct industrial policy that harkens back to the New Deal era or even to the Hamiltonian system, which helped to build our nation in the first place.
I have questions about this because I don't know about you, but as far as a national industrial base and Biden's support and say advocation for that, I feel like the only thing that you could possibly point to as actually being true about that would be like the CHIPS Act and funding towards microprocessor manufacturers around the country, which was a thing, and they are in there's ones being built. I think there's a couple of them. I think there's one in Oklahoma being built or something. They are doing that. But as far as everything else,
the infrastructure maybe, just that people here are going to get those jobs. But
but as like the industrial base, I don't think he has had nothing, but he's tried to raise tax or remove the tax cuts for corporations, and so that, like, let me start over again. That was my brain is not working yet. When Trump was in office, he essentially threatened major companies to bring their workforces back to the United States. He wanted to bring manufacturing back to the United States, and was successful in that to a small point, but it was more like getting factories from overseas, like in Asia and stuff like that, to be down in Mexico, and then we'll import from Mexico, that kind of thing. That was good, like the Ford factories and all that stuff. They quit all their super overseas stuff to bring things back to Mexico. More stuff being built there. But I mean, Detroit didn't see like a vibrant resurgence for fucking, the GM factory out there. And I mean, it's still just as terrible as it has been for decades at this point.
She started to really champion this union thing, the Biden support for unions. And we talked about that the other day, that she seems to be forgetting how upset she was when they put the foot down on the railway union and the dealings that they were trying to have. They're like, get your shit together, accept this deal because we're moving on. She was very upset about that, and that supposedly apparently doesn't matter anymore.
Not anymore. But yeah, I'm begging to see what to like picture what she's actually what she's saying. I don't see a resurgence in, national manufacturing or in the generalized industrial base. He continues to go after natural gas and oil drilling here, which thank you very much. And then thanks to all the Build Back Better green things that they actually did get through at the time, our entire, energy grid is on the precipice of being just totally fucked. Period. Full stop.
I got it.
What do we do?
Do you know what type of manufacturing Biden's investing in? Military manufacturing.
Oh,
That's where all the money's going.
It is. Hundreds of billions of dollars to Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and a number of other ones. Interesting. I mean, that
must be what she's talking about.
It has to be, because that is true. That is one sector of the industrial sector in America that is just going gangbusters, printing weapons out there and just sending them over to Ukraine.
Must be what she's talking about.
That's a good grab. I like that. How could I have missed that?
Yeah.
The Infrastructure Act is helping to build critical infrastructure, which was desperately needed, long neglected. The CHIPS Act prioritizes domestic industrial development of semiconductors, absolutely essential industry. The very poorly named Inflation Reduction Act is the most ambitious piece of Biden industrial policy, which seeks to get America wholeheartedly into the game of green tech investment, an industry which will define the future and an area where China has long been destroying us through their own large investments and industrial policy.
So she's talking about green energy.
Because we're going to start making solar panels and we're going to put up new electric charging stations.
Yeah, and wind turbines, and that's going to be, that's all part of that Inflation Reduction Act.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're forever jobs because they fucking break all the goddamn time.
Yes. And they don't work very well. I saw this story on Twitter the other day. I almost put it in the grab bag, but I didn't because it's real sad. In one of the offshore wind farms that they're building, right? They just pour these giant fucking columns down into the seabed.
Yeah.
A fucking whale ran into one the other day and fucking died.
Oh my God.
And it was just a column. They haven't even put the actual wind turbine on it yet. So, it's good for nature, though, supposedly.
Nice.
At the same time, the Biden administration has also broken with 40 years of consensus on corporate power and monopolies, bringing in a group of true renegades to restore trust busting and make it relevant again in the modern era.
How's that
There
going?
is hardly an industry where a small group of giant corporations haven't taken over with devastating consequences for small businesses, workers, farmers, and consumers, to name a few groups. So this work is really essential. And while, of course, I want them to go further and vehemently oppose the Biden admin's intervention in the rail workers' potential strike.
Okay.
This is the first administration in my life that has taken significant steps to strengthen union power.
That's not a good thing. They already have a stranglehold in power in every major industry.
And the interlocking between union and politics is destructive to the country. It's not beneficial. During COVID, because it's a perfect example, some of the larger unions were some of the most ardent supporters of the very restrictions that were keeping our economy confined.
Yes.
One of them being the teachers union, that is one of the biggest unions in the country, if not the biggest, has enormous political power and was almost single-handedly keeping schools closed against what we all knew was the best for the children.
Yep.
And fought for it for 3 years.
And some of them are still doing it.
Because of the teachers. Because the teachers need to be safe.
Got to keep them teachers safe. Yeah, teachers unions. I mean, every major infrastructure construction project.
The airline unions.
Yes.
This was an issue.
This was an issue. The CEO, I don't know if I want to put him on blast, but it's public. CEO of Alaska Airlines doubled his salary. Did anybody else working there, did they get their salary doubled?
Right.
Nah, not even a little bit. But they don't really have control over that because, much like many other industries, it's controlled by unions.
Right.
And, unions have lots of problems because you can't just... Union leadership will create a contract with whoever owns this and runs the company, right?
A collective bargaining agreement.
Yes, and these contracts run for certain periods of time.
Yes.
And so you may not be able to readdress this thing for a number of years, depending on what the previous contract was. But again, we see this with all week this week, there are no traffic on the major ferry route going to Seattle from Bainbridge Island, right?
Yes.
And there are no vehicle traffic allowed on that ferry for a week.
Why?
because they're doing work on the piers. Because they got it's part of infrastructure stuff. We've got a bunch of money for it. We've been rebuilding. They just redid the terminal over in Seattle. They're rebuilding part of the it's just like the entryway and stuff like that in the one in Bainbridge. But because of all the construction goes on, you can't have traffic being run back and forth. So they're shutting that shit down for a week. Every one of those construction companies that are working on that, union or private sector, having to go through the rigmarole of having to pay everybody union wages just to have the opportunity to work there.
Right.
Which a small company can get seriously fucked on because the government takes a while to pay people. You have to essentially invest a bunch of money up front to pay all your employees these things, hoping that on the back end, you're actually going to get paid in a timely manner from the government so that you don't fucking lose your business. But every one of these major infrastructure programs, a lot of them be done by utility companies, unionized. It's all, that's how they strengthen union, by giving them more and more jobs, by having all this massive funding come in so that they can pay for these jobs.
Right.
Meantime, mom and pop shops, small businesses are getting screwed out of those opportunities.
Right.
Strengthening unions is not always a good thing. It's generally a bad thing. Because, I've harped on unions so much. You as an individual worker, if you're so concerned about workers and the worker, you have zero control over. You have zero bargaining power when you're in a union. You just join the union, and the union does your bargaining power for you. You just have to accept what it is that they give you, and hope that you get a good deal.
She's been arguing a lot lately for different, as funding goes out from the government, like demanding that funding goes to companies, or companies that are requiring the union jobs, right? Union employment. These that's what these different contracts and stuff go out to. As someone who works for a small business who's not union, the issue I have with that is it puts other people who work for small business at a disadvantage, that they aren't up for those contracts. If they can't afford to pay union wages, something like that, then they aren't even available for that. And it grows that corner of the market that the unions have, that pushes the small businesses out if they don't want to unionize, if it doesn't benefit them. If we've talked about it in our own business, if we unionized as an employee base, it would not benefit us to be in a union. We would be in a worse off position in almost all aspects. We wouldn't have as good of an environment. They couldn't work with us as interpersonally as they do. A lot of the personal stuff they do for us couldn't happen anymore if we had free unions. We would not be in a better place as employees if Bennick was unionized.
No, and I worked at a manufacturing plant before working at Bennick the first time that was majority unionized. Yeah. Most of the workers there were parts of unions. I was like a really rare exception that got a single hire. And I had the opportunity to join the union, but I declined.
Because I think we're in a right-to-work state where you're not required to join unions if like a shop is unionized. You can still work there. You're not required to join a union. There are some places that are not right-to-work states where if it's a union, you have to join it. You don't have a choice. Yeah. But here, I believe that we do.
Yeah, and even most I almost went into heating and cooling at one time, and the reason that I ended up declining that because as part of that job, I had to join that specific union. Like it was some Teamsters union or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not into that concept because then my wages are fixed according to whatever contracts are getting done. And that's not the way I operate. I don't just give away my labor to be compensated by a collective group later on that decides what I get ultimately in the end. I'm not into that. I like to be able to sell my own self-worth at whatever price that I negotiate with my employer.
And in a truly capitalist economy, that will benefit you. If you are proving that you can provide more value to a company than other employees, then you should be compensated more. You should not be restricted by a collective bargaining agreement, even though we fully support the right of individuals to come together to represent themselves if that's what they feel is the best thing to do. You shouldn't be put at a disadvantage of that because of this set agreement that's already there before you got there, or if you didn't agree with it, if you voted against it. These are not things that you should be limited by in a capitalist economy.
Yeah, and that's also another thing too that you just brought up, like the Democratic side of things like that. They're voting. Yeah, you as a union member vote for what you want your union to do or not. Right. In which case, again, you're giving up the rights to your own labor to, the tyrannical 51% in this democratic vote that's happening in your union. And you still don't even have that much choice in it.
Yeah.
You get one vote. Congratulations. Whether or not it works out for you, it's up to the democratic process.
Yeah.
Good luck, Godspeed.
I don't want 1/500th say in my employment status. You
No.
know, in like in my situation. I'm not interested in that.
No. And the other thing about it is that with those extra benefits and higher salaries, they siphon a lot of people out of the private industry, you know, which makes companies only still be able to pay so much.
Right.
Because essentially subsidized workplaces like unions can pay you twice as much sometimes. And if you're in a fucking bind, at the end of the day, you might have to go work for a union to go make more money. And then next thing you know, that just bolsters their power even more.
Yeah.
Just through the fucking stranglehold they keep on the entire labor force. It's not good, dude. It's a very, very nuanced thing.
Yeah.
Unions, you have to. It's a very nuanced problem because there's pluses, there's minuses, but just a blatant strengthening of unions, in her words, is not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
Overall, it's probably a bad thing, especially for the worker, quote unquote.
Biden National Labor Relations Board has been a game changer for workers trying to organize. From decisions in favor of Starbucks workers to the recent earthquake ruling that will force union busters to immediately recognize and bargain with workers, real steps have been taken that could lead to a resurgence of labor, which to me is the single most important thing you could do to improve the lot of American workers. To underscore just how important this really is, just take a look at this chart. Killing unions killed the middle class. It is really that simple. Now,
What's the years down there? 1967
67 to 2012.
Look at that. Has there been any other governmental involvement and, you know, detrimental policies passed since then that
No.
would have greatly decreased the power of the middle class?
Stop asking questions.
Now, as I
Don't
said
have
before,
questions
the
here.
Biden NLRB alone is reason to choose Biden over Trump if your priority is the fate of the American working class. But none of that positive possible future for Bidenomics
There
is
definitely
helping
wasn't
people.
any type of trade deals or anything that sent a shitload of jobs overseas. Nothing nothing like that happened in between 67 and 2012. There weren't any type of NAFTA agreements. None of that type of shit
None of
happened.
that stuff.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. That just completely gutted the middle class.
Yeah, no corporate buyouts, no nothing.
And what was the first thing Trump did when he got in the office? Just
You shut your mouth.
nuke the TPP?
You shut your mouth.
I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking
Shut your
questions.
damn mouth. Biden's the best.
People today, right now, nor will it be helping them when they go to cast their ballots a year from now. The Biden team screwed themselves by abandoning an immediate agenda of material progress for debt-laden Americans. That's the real problem for him. After all, Biden's been old this whole time. He was old when he won the Democratic primary. He was old when he beat Trump. He was old at the beginning of his term when his approval rating was soaring. And he's still faring better.
There's no doubt there's been a marked decline in Joe Biden's mental state
It's
since
not
he had
age,
been
dude.
president.
It's not age.
We had to give him credit when he was on the debate stage. We're like, he's actually kind of with it. Like,
Yeah.
he's actually coherent in this discussion where Donald Trump is fucking giving him the rope-a-dope. But he's here. Like, he's still
Yeah.
here. He's choosing to ignore him, but he is here. He is not even in the fucking building anymore.
No, dude. He's not even in the building. I really want to know what cocktail of drugs they shot him up with before that debate. Because we need to fucking patent that shit, put it into a pill, and start just sending it.
I want some of that before every show.
Yes, that's exactly.
We'll be
We'll put
millionaires
Alpha Brain out
tomorrow.
of business, dude. Let's
Yeah.
go. I just want all the amphetamines. That's basically
Biden
what
brain.
they
That's
are.
what it's called. Biden brain.
Do you want to win a debate against Donald Trump? Biden brain.
in the polls than his much younger vice president, Kamala Harris. What has changed isn't Biden being old. It's the credit card balances, the dwindling bank accounts, and increasingly hopeless housing situation that has turned what should be a gimme reelect into grave peril. And Sagar, that's sort of my
So,
And isn't it interesting that those... Go ahead.
her overall point, because this whole thing is essentially Biden's too old, this is why he's losing, right? And then she goes, no, it has to do with the economy, and Biden's long-term plans are great, but his short-term plans have been terrible. Look around you for a second and ask yourself, are you markedly worse off today than you were fucking 4 years ago?
Yes.
In every objective metric, 100%. There's a very, very small group of people in this country, the fucking super wealthy, that are better off today than they were back then because they got all that fucking money. The regular ass person, the middle class that she is so apt to protect is exponentially worse off today than they were 4 years ago. And it's not even by a little bit. I mean, it is so much.
And they don't care about what he's saying about 10 years from now, or what she's saying about 10 years from now, 20 years from now. That doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter at all, dude.
Those things don't matter to me right now.
No. You fucked up. You've made life worse for every American since you got into office, and you're continually making it worse every single day.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with his age. His age is not the problem. His dementia is the problem.
Right.
That is part of that problem, because when he gets up there and he's wandering around like fucking Mr. Magoo and falling down and just blurting out incoherent sentences and just stopping sometimes midway and giving up on whatever he was trying to say.
The human Roomba was good.
whatever.
That was a good comparison.
The what?
Shane Gillis called him a human Roomba.
Yes.
And like, that's very
That
good.
was perfect,
That's
dude.
very, very good. You know.
Yeah, that certainly has an effect on his approval rating.
Yes.
Because when the fucking corporate press is blasting him out there at every available minute to try to make him look good, and people see that decrepit dude putzing around on stage, they go, I don't like that.
Well, his
That's
team,
rough,
his
dude.
team is bad too. You know,
Terrible.
Karine Jean-Pierre, like who's his mouthpiece, she's bad.
She's been getting hemmed up lately,
She's
dude.
really bad.
I think I have a clip when we do Maui later that illustrates some serious issues. She's like giving up.
Yeah.
It's tough, dude.
They should have held Saki. They should have held Saki forever.
Just I don't know if they could have offered her the money. You know, MSNBC offered her a fat ass contract. So she's
bet.
like, I gotta go. I got
Gotta
my own
go.
show now. I got that clout and those dollars.
I can't believe that she has her own show.
It's fucking rough, dude.
She is the worst.
100%. But also, shout out to her because she's grabbing her bag, dude. She got hers.
Capitalized for sure.
She got it, dude.
Yeah.
And that's phenomenal. Let's see. So, any closing remarks on Bidenomics, Crystal Ball, that segment?
The things that she ended on with the housing prices and the whatever, you know, are not things that she addressed during her monologue.
Yeah.
But she's saying, but this is the issue now, you know.
There's a lot of
don't know.
immediate problems we have now. A lot of them. And no amount of federal involvement will fix them. The best bet the federal government would have to do is to just walk away from it all and leave people to figure it the fuck out.
Yeah.
Because people are smart. They're adaptive. They can figure it out as long as government gets out of our fucking way. So I have a little update on some local politics.
Local politics for fucking John.
For John, and this primarily just focuses on the upcoming gubernatorial.
I'd love to grab her back. Oh my God.
Heyo.
Brian, stop it.
I mean, Brian, she did look good in that
You
clip.
salty
That's all I'm
dog.
saying. That's all I'm saying. And it's far enough away from clip I won't get dogged on in the comments for being a shallow man that I am.
They love that. And people love when they love to hate on us for hating on them for the optics of what they have going on.
Indeed.
You know?
When what you're doing is in a visual medium where optics of your appearance are very important.
And when you're trying to separate yourself from corporate media, but you present yourself exactly like them, it matters. These things do in fact matter.
Brian's the goat. That's all I'm going to say.
I think that it's relevant. But what do we know? Because
What do we
our
know?
shit would look better in a bathroom or whatever, right?
Yeah, we're just shout. Yeah.
we're just pieces of trash. We're
We
fucking right-wing grifters is all we are. So
Yeah, also, key point to why we're not right-wing grifters is because to grift, you need to make money off of it. We're not slanging in the cash,
true.
bro. That's how that
Yeah.
goes.
Even
if
with
we're grifters,
Patreon.
we're real bad about it.
even with Patreon, we're still in a deficit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're still not making money.
We don't have 500,000 subs. We
No.
don't. We're not grifting nobody, dude.
Yeah.
That's how that goes. The major. Actually, I think we'll start with the news story here because this
Okay.
one is interesting. We're still way far out even from the primaries for this. We're over a year out, so I hate all of this. The presidential election stuff and the primaries are kickstarting the early onset of like state level politics bullshit, and we're still so far out it's not even funny. but there's a few people that are kind of in the first poll conducted in the state. There's only a few people that are even charting a little bit. Bob Ferguson is maintaining over like 30%, and he's the only one at those levels. And
If Bob Ferguson becomes governor, we are fucked as freedom-loving individuals.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to get bad.
Yeah, and there's somebody apparently named Garcia, who is an emergency medical physician who does not show up on the Ballotpedia yet.
Oh.
I don't know why, but that's what the Washington Standard is reporting, along with Semi Bird, who we've talked about before, and who's got something else going on, and then he's pulling, I think, at 10%.
You say he's got something else going on?
Yeah, he's got something else going on right now. It's kind of getting him hemmed up.
What's going on with Semi Bird?
We will get to it.
Okay.
As long as I don't pee my pants in the meantime.
Brian says he was talking about Jen Psaki's bags. That's what I thought he was talking about, too.
Oh, gotcha.
To which
Gotcha.
I can't disagree with you.
No. Would you mind reading a little bit of this article while I hit the head real quick?
Okay.
Thank you. Oy.
New polling in 2024 governor's race indicates that Public Lands Commissioner Hillary Franz and State Senator Mark Mullet both have a lot of work to do winning over voters if they want to be competitive against their fellow Democrat frontrunner, Attorney General Bob Ferguson. Republican contender, another issue with Bob Ferguson, one of the issues with Bob Ferguson is because he's Attorney General, he's worked very, very intimately with the state legislature in his last few terms. And that will not benefit us as freedom-loving individuals as far as different forms of legislation come if he is to win the governorship. Republican contender Raul Garcia, meanwhile, had a relatively strong showing in the survey as the second most popular candidate. Ferguson and Garcia both touted the results as Franz's campaign downplayed the findings, and Mullet's team even suggested Ferguson's performance was lackluster given his high political profile. The Northwest Progressive Institute worked with the public policy polling to conduct the poll, which included landline and text responses from 773 likely voters in next year's general election.
I like the fact they gave us the numbers.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty sad. That's a pretty sad number right there.
Candidates are running to replace Governor Jay Inslee, a Democrat not seeking re-election. While the results offer hints of how the results could go, it's quite early to be making predictions. The primary is still about 14 months away, and many Jesus Christ, and many voters either haven't tuned in yet or are still learning about the candidates. In fact, a third of the respondents said they are undecided. Still, the polls show Ferguson. Now, how do you know? How do you decide if you're who now? Why would you know?
Exactly.
14 months from now. How would you already know? Why would you already know?
Yeah, because when I first started going down this road, I was like, why is there no polls here? Like, I went to, tried to find, the average polls, on Real Clear Politics or something like that. But this was the first one conducted that even did this. And it's also important to remember, which we'll get into, Bob Ferguson hasn't even announced yet that he's running for governor, which is kind of fucked up.
No, he did.
Not officially. He's officially announcing today, Saturday. I have an article about it we'll get to after we hit Semi Bird. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, so now in his third term as the state's top lawyer, enjoyed a wide advantage with 25% of respondents supporting him. Next was Garcia, an emergency medicine physician who lives in Yakima with 17%. He was followed by Semi Bird, a Richland School Board member and military veteran, favored by 10% of potential voters. Franz at 9%, Mullet at 7%. Nobody else cares about these people.
We watched a Semi Bird ad, right?
We sure did.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I liked his shit.
I liked his stuff too. He had a good message about focusing on family and freedom and
get us a good black governor, put us on that equity train.
Let's go, dude. Yeah, or do we want the skinny white guy who's been in politics his whole life and a
equity for the
skeezy
win,
lawyer?
Right? This is Washington. We need some diversity.
Indeed. So Semi Bird, like I said, he's got something else going on right now.
Okay.
He is set because he sits on a school board and he is being recalled. There's a recall vote going on right now. The military veteran and Republican from Richland says he'll continue his gubernatorial campaign regardless of the results of the board.
The fuck, Semi
the
Bird?
vote. Oh, you're going to like him even more when you find out why. So Richland School Board member Semi Bird is a Republican running for Washington governor and angling to clear the all-important August 2024 primary election. But first, Bird faces another vote, Tuesday's recall election, to decide if he and two others should remain on his local school board. Byrd, a military veteran who has worked in the federal government and as a business consultant, says the public health measures by Governor Jay Inslee to curb COVID-19 during the pandemic sent him into politics. He won a seat on the Richland School Board in 2021 and is now being recalled because of pandemic-related actions he took while on the board. When, quote, when Jay Inslee shut down our state, our schools, our businesses, our places of worship, that was the trigger for me to run for school board, said Byrd, 62. Voters in the Richland School District will get to weigh in on some of Byrd's pandemic actions in the recall, which asserts, among other things, that Byrd and 2 other board members violated the State Open Public Meetings Act, and supporters of the recall urged that the 3 board members use, quote, poor judgment when they voted in February 2022 to make masks optional in the schools while the state's indoor mask requirements were still in effect.
Violated the open public meeting, so they did shit with people.
Yes.
During COVID.
Because they passed a measure that said, we're not going to mandate masks in our school district. We're going to make them optional.
No. The Open Public Meetings Act, I mean, that's what that is. That was during COVID, which said that we can't meet in large groups outside of our homes, is what that was.
Yes.
So that's what that refers to. That means that he did stuff. He just did something with a group of people during that time, and that they voted to make masks optional, which we know now that masks had very little to no effect.
None whatsoever.
We'll get into more COVID stuff later, but the mask thing, I don't...
So he's being
how is
hemmed up
that
for
even
being
a
based.
thing you can use as argument now when they are the powers that be, those that enforced masks during COVID, are having to admit now that they had little to no effect on people's ability to not get COVID. I don't understand. I don't. My brain's broken a little bit. I don't get how. I mean, I guess we live in Washington, but how can you even use that as a thing when there's no basis even for that argument now?
Because
at the time it was scary.
At the time,
get the fuck out of here.
At the time, these were the regulations that said you can do that, and we're gonna pass this thing, and we're gonna have meetings. We're gonna do our things regardless of what the edicts put down by the government are. And so I would imagine he and these other members on this board were kind of an insurgent group of people that got in to oppose the things, to oppose all the COVID era bullshit. And they were starting to make some progress, and the rest of the board did not like that. And now they're fucking recalling his ass, especially because he's out there, he's campaigning, he's trying to run for governor. So they got to try to shut him down. How
does one small state hold so many people with such different views of what the truth is? I just don't.
It's, I'm curious, actually. Let me put this up. Where is the
We
Richland
live together
School
and
Board?
we're looking at completely different sets of information to inform ourselves, and it's kind of shocking.
Yeah. So where is he at? Oh, okay. So he's like just he's like an hour out of Yakima towards the sticks. And that's the school district that he's being hemmed up in. Well, it's got a major city, West Richland and Richland. So if there's a city somewhere, that's not going to do too well for him.
They're going to get you.
That's gross. But at the end of the day, he really doesn't have anything to worry about. Okay, he gets recalled from his woke school board. No big deal. I'm still running for governor. All that'll do is give me more press. And, of course, Bob Ferguson officially launching run for Washington governor.
Okay, so what had happened before?
I think he formed an exploratory committee or did one of those things. I'm pretty sure that's how that went.
And because then he caught heat for doing shit like for fundraising and stuff before he had announced.
Yes.
So maybe he filed paperwork or something. Like maybe he filed the paperwork to announce. It doesn't matter.
Well, like the exploratory committee and stuff is an official step. And so like campaign finance stuff kicks in at that point, and then you have to be minding your P's and Q's. But yeah, Attorney General Bob Ferguson will officially launch his run for the state's next governor on Saturday. That would be today. Governor Inslee is not running for the fourth term. Ferguson's campaign will begin with events in Spokane and Tri-Cities and Seattle. In May, the AG announced he was looking into the possibilities of running for governor in the form of an exploratory committee and a statewide listening tour.
You got me.
Over the summer, Ferguson visited...
A statewide listening tour?
Yes.
Fuck you, Bob Ferguson.
Over the summer, Ferguson visited all 39 counties in Washington.
You're a piece of trash.
After morning events in Eastern Washington on Saturday, Ferguson will hold a rally in central Seattle. Speakers include Jay Inslee, former governor Chris Gregoire, our favorite representative Pamela Jayapal, Representative Susan Dilbone, and King County Council member Gurme Zala. So yeah, anyways, it's official as of today. The evil is running.
Well, he is just the worst.
He absolutely is the worst. He doesn't believe in democracy either, people. You guys should be very upset that he just doesn't believe in democracy.
Also, he looks like a creep.
He is a creep. God, if you think he looks bad, man, wait till he opens his mouth. He gets real like Gavin Newsom vibes, man.
Yeah.
Real Gavin Newsom vibes.
See, this motherfucker Gavin Newsom is like, I'm going to introduce a new amendment to the Constitution to fucking ban assault rifles.
Yeah.
You live in California. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
No one gives a shit what you have to say. Shut up. You decide things for the whole country in California. Your state is the
Get
worst.
out.
It is one of the worst.
100%. Especially these days.
In what world do you think you have any reason or any place to tell anybody else in any other state how they should fucking live their lives?
You run your state so bad that even the hardcore woke people, that it's too much for them. So they move to fucking Seattle, the other bastion of progressive nonsense. So bad that we have a fucking we got a drug problem on transportation in Seattle.
I've talked about this before because there were having issues getting people to work on the buses because they had tons of drivers who were just walking off because they were being assaulted, and they were like dozens of times having to tell people, hey, you can't fucking smoke crack on the bus. You know, you can't do meth on the bus. You can't smoke fentanyl on the bus. People were like, hey, shut up.
Shut up.
They do it anyway. People, children, old people sitting on the bus have to be around people who are choosing to use fentanyl around them. Put the fumes in the air. Put the fumes in the air.
Put the fumes in the air. And I think I got this nice little clip from Brandy Cruz. I think we could watch real quick. She did a show called Undivided. Was big in Seattle reporting.
She worked for Fox News.
Okay.
She was the one that Shootarugi was protecting the day of the stuff in Seattle.
That's right.
And then she got fired for being out during that thing. They're like, that's irresponsible. She's like, I'm a fucking reporter, you asshole. Also, this guy has a gun. It's fine. And
the best thing about her is she has a hard-on for hating Bob Ferguson.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of sums up.
I like Brandy Cruz.
She's good people, man. She's good people. But we'll take a listen to this.
Bob Ferguson didn't say anything when the state Supreme Court overturned the state's felony drug possession statute. He didn't use an ounce of his political will to push state lawmakers to come up with a solution. So we had a law on the books that made drug possession and drug use a crime. In fact, he did the opposite. He urged lawmakers to, quote, eliminate the criminal penalties associated with possessing a non-commercial amount of drugs, calling it a bold and necessary step. He didn't say anything when in 2021 his party watered down our state's police pursuit statute to the point where multiple law enforcement agencies, both local, state, and federal, said that would hinder their ability to interrupt drug traffickers. He didn't say jack about it.
Oh, we went to the Blackberry Festival last weekend. I signed probably 7, it doesn't matter, as we know, but I signed 7 different initiatives, I think, because on one corner there were 4 Republican booths set up on every corner in this one area to try and get all these people to sign this initiative. So one was for one was to repeal the long-term care tax.
Okay.
Right. One of them was to repeal the 40-cent gas tax. One of them was to allow the police to pursue stolen cars because that's a thing now. If you're a police officer in Washington State and you see a stolen car, you aren't allowed to pursue that person unless they are committing another crime. If you see a stolen car, you cannot go after it unless they're also committing another crime.
I am all too familiar with this.
Yes. So that's one that I signed. Another one was that, like, if your kids go to a public school and they're going to discuss anything having to do with sex or gender or whatever, they got to send you a pamphlet home because they don't do that now. Like, you don't have to sign a waiver or whatever.
Nope.
I feel like there was something else too, but A gang of them. We spent 10 minutes at this place fucking signing initiatives for
That's wild.
for this woman. And
Just trying to get things on the ballot.
And then there were on the way back there was a guy who was standing there asking questions, and he said, "Is this associated with Tim Hyman?" And the guy sitting at the booth said, "Yes," and he said, "Nope," and threw his hands up and walked away. I was like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, it's really funny because even if those ballot measures got enough signatures and were
Right.
able to be drafted and put on the actual ballot, Bob Ferguson would just find a reason why that vote didn't matter.
Yes.
And something about the legislation was too confusing or something, and this vote doesn't matter.
He's a big fan of that type of stuff.
He's huge on that. Come on, Twitter. Come on, Twitter.
The fuck X?
Maybe not. We might be done with Brandy Cruz today. Because, yeah, either way, you kind of get the point that, everything's just frozen now. This is sweet. Way to go, guys. Hopefully we're still streaming.
It still says excellent.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We'll give it a minute. Hopefully it'll come back. What the fuck over? X, did you break my computer?
Can you like press escape to make it smaller or something? Uh-oh.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Everything's just frozen. Oh, great. Can I hit anything on here? No. We might be hemmed up. Could I do it? Are we still streaming? Great. Yeah. Can I hit anything? Well, this is good. So we're still streaming, but nothing is working. Well,
We're having
I
some
guess,
technical difficulties,
yeah.
obviously.
So I guess we'll just vamp for a minute.
Yeah,
Hopefully things come back.
because you have a ton of tabs on this, so you can't just close the window.
No. So we're just kind of we're in a weird holding pattern now, which is highly uncomfortable for me.
I like this.
Yeah.
You can change the view on OBS at least. Yeah.
Let's see here. Nope.
Nice.
Nice. I have no control over anything right now. It's a miracle we're even still streaming, so I guess I'll just take that. Oh, man. Yeah, I did have this other article that we could have talked about and brought it up, but to that public transportation thing in Seattle, there's a big investigation done in a report that was filed, and the unions that run all the public transport in Seattle are very, very unhappy with it because they have found on buses and on trains and on the monorail, every form of public transportation you can get, there are measurable levels of fentanyl and methamphetamines that were picked up on almost everything that they tested.
There's like on the surfaces and stuff.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
And fentanyl in particular is really dangerous because if there's like powdered fentanyl around and you're like getting it on your hands or something like that, it
Yeah.
can absorb into your skin. So it's a very, very